E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Ginwa Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Messages of Inspirational Stories. Jim, exciting week about the ability in disability. And I know that both you and I have learned so much. And
Yes.
Been quite humble.
Double yes on that one. Because we can all relate to times in our life when we've kind of like, don't want to do something, or we put it off, because procrastination is one of the worst things that we can all suffer from.
Right.
And it is the most crippling thing of any enterprise on planet Earth, and on all fronts, including relationships. If you put off, saying I'm sorry or putting a little extra effort into the relationship, it's going to cost you.
Absolutely.
But what's really inspiring to me is that all of these people had the ability, kind of like the phoenix that rises out of the ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And they refused to let the light inside of them be squelched.
Right.
By a disability or an illness or whatever it was that made them adjust their life so that they could still enjoy life, live it abundantly, and inspire others in the process.
Absolutely.
That is just blown my mind.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get into all of that in a few, and we're going to be talking about some famous people who, kind of surprisingly, I mean, some of them we know about, but some we don't. And it's truly amazing, the things that they've overcome in their life. But before we do all that, we're going to get into our national holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first one is National Couples Day, Jim.
All right.
Right? I love that.
Love is in the air.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Where?
Oh,
my goodness.
So this is, it's time to celebrate the one you adore, your partner in crime, your ride or die. And you know what it means. Couples Day, the history of it is really kind of cool. It's bigger now than ever before. Everybody, different types of couples that were able to celebrate their existence, whether it's same sex, opposite sex, gender non-conforming relationships, your love and existence is still absolutely valid, right? So I'm trying to find it, Jim, and maybe I can't, but I can't see where the history of it came from.
Well, I imagine it started with couples. What do you think?
You're so silly. You're so silly.
Oh, man. The history of it, National Couples Day's timeline, it started back, first reference of Valentine's Day, for example, was back in 1375.
Wow.
And then the first interracial marriage becomes legal in the United States. Loving and people by the name of Loving and Virginia. That happened in 1967. And 1970 was when Pride Parade begins. And marriage equality was 2015. But the main thing about it being Couples Day is rejoice in the loved one in your life.
Absolutely.
Because love, I got to tell you something about love. I mean, I'm a subject matter expert on love. In my dreams anyway, in the canyons of my mind, I'm a mental giant. But when I experienced my episode in the hospital, we can all relate to when we breathe. We can inhale and exhale air. I
Right.
was actually inhaling in my soul and love. That's a beautiful feeling. And the next thing that I knew everything instantaneously, but everything about this earth, the non important stuff, the nonsense of the world. We might call it the muck, mire, and the trash of life that we all have to put up with. That is nowhere on the spectrum in that arena. And the peace, the calmness, the love, just imagine being at a place where you just inhale and you're just surrounded by love, just like oxygen surrounds you.
Right.
That's what it's like. And I think that is what, when it talks about Couples Day, that's the type of agape, not the lustful type of love, but the agape type of love, the pure, forgiving love.
Well, at the end of the day, when our time here on earth is done, Jim,
Mhm.
truly the only two things we take with us is the love we've given and
Mhm.
the love we've received.
That's right.
And that's what we take with us. Nothing else goes with us.
Yeah. I was teasing my wife the other day. I said, I'm kind of dyslexic. She said, you are? And I said, yeah. I said, people ask me how old I am. I said, well, it's either 74 or 47. I don't know which, but I kind of like that 47 number. And I said, just think if you did put an announcement in the paper, which I don't care if you do or not, prefer you didn't. I says, and I'm, lopsided like that, be true to my school. Put in I was 47, for example, just to take some people on a mental trip and go, I don't know, boy, he looked like he's 105 to me. Yeah. I tell
Oh,
you,
goodness.
that wouldn't work if you are 105. You'd be 501, right?
Right?
Yeah. But, we're going to talk about a few people that's dyslexic today, too. But let's get back into that national holiday, what we're really experiencing today. And the next one, oh my goodness, National Fajita Day. This kind of surprised me. They say, as far as their history recording here, this is their comments, not mine. I'm just sharing the comments with you. But in 1930s, there were Mexican ranch workers in Texas, and it's believed that they were the ones that made the fajita prototype with cutting cheap cuts of beef. And in 1969, this is a shocker, the very first sale was by Sonny Falcon, just like the bird, Falcon. Sonny Falcon makes the first recorded fajita sales from his concession booth in Kyle, Texas in 1969. Now, you'd think fajitas would be around hundreds of years at least.
Right?
But the word fajita was used to define the dish officially, and it first appeared in the Oxford English Dictionary in 1971. And in 1982, the Hyatt Cuisine, the chef was George Weidman from the Hyatt Regency in Austin, put sizzling fajitas on his menu with huge success. That was 1982. That kind of surprised me, Donna, because I thought fajitas would be around as long as the cow or any other meat.
Right? Oh, I love fajitas. So
I
good.
do too.
And so
Especially when they're
easy to
sizzling. Oh yeah, they're what we call scrumdiddlyicious, right?
make. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So today is also National Ice Cream Pie Day.
Mm. Mm.
Yum. Who
Yeah.
doesn't like ice cream pie?
Oh, I tell you, yeah. I
So
mean,
ice cream pie, every
oh yeah.
kind and every flavor out there, right?
Hmm.
So whoever invented that was absolutely brilliant.
Mm.
But the first ice cream pie appeared in Persia. Are you ready for this? About 2,500 years ago.
That's before they had refrigerators, huh?
Right? Those early versions used frozen sweetened water that had been smashed into little bits and topped with fruits and topping. During the winter, ice was gathered from the mountains and lakes and kept in ice huts. This method of ice cream making was progressively adapted by the Greek and Roman civilizations. Nobles and those who could afford to pay the costly process quickly became enamored with it. Following the fall of the Roman Empire, organized ice transport came to a standstill and the ice cream production became even more expensive. It wasn't until Europe left the Dark Ages behind that ice cream enjoyed a resurgence in Renaissance Italy. Pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when you said they had to get out of the dark ages, I'm thinking about what we're going through now in this country. We got to get out of the dark ages and start living again, because all the things going on around us, we just need to let it go. Let these people who think they're in charge, let them dream on, because nobody can squelch and put your candle out. And I got to mention this one here. Today is National Mail Order Catalog Day. Because you young folks that don't ever get catalogs in the mail, you don't know what you're missing. Because Donna, as you very well know, being an avid reader, having something in your hand and looking at it and turning it is so much more powerful and tasteful and colorful to the eyes than looking at a screen. Okay, how do I do this now? Especially if you're on your cell phone. That's a really, you got to have eyes like an eagle and look in the corners, don't you?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, and that's a great thing that we have, mail order.
Oh, yeah.
It does come in handy once in a while. I'm going to be honest with you.
Actually, I like them myself. Of course, I grew up with them, but, the birth of the catalog was started back in 1498. And there was a guy by the name of Aldus P.S. Manutius. He published the very first catalog in 1744. The mail order concept became known. In fact, most people are familiar with Benjamin Franklin's kite experiment on the development of the lightning rod. However, that year, he invented the postal order system in 1744. And some of the mail order pioneers, they're recognized in the 1830s. They became more widely recognized as seed and nurserymen, because people out there, a lot of farmers and stuff, they needed, catalogs to be able to find the seed and the fertilizers and things that they need. And it really shot off in 1872 when Aaron Montgomery Ward established the world's first mail order firm. His first catalog is only one page long, and it comprised about 162 products. But, that's one store that I still miss, as we used to call it.
Monkey Wards.
Monkey Wards. Oh, my goodness. And they had a wide variety of stuff in there. They really did. They were a full-blown store.
Yes, they were.
They were
the very beginning of Amazon, if you will.
Yeah. They were a boots on the ground, brick and mortar Amazon. That's exactly what they were. That's a good way of putting it.
Absolutely. Well, this next one is near and dear to me, is Never Give Up Day. I love that. I think we've all been there in our life where we just feel like, I want to give up. But, this is a day to celebrate how amazing you are. And that, humans have always achieved more than they thought they could by sheer willpower alone, right? So, get that motivation. You can move mountains. Never Give Up Day was created for this reason. So the history is that the mindset can bring extraordinary results and make one go beyond one's potential. Has been well known to humans for thousands of years. So Derek Raymonds had torn his hamstrings in the middle of the 400 geez, poor brain isn't working this morning.
Yeah, it was down the road a little ways, huh?
Yeah, 400 race. Suffering excruciating pain, he got up and hopped to the finish line. He was accompanied by his father, who jumped in on the track from the stands after seeing his son in pain. He was, he might not have won the race, but he won the hearts of millions around the world with his display of extraordinary willpower in the face of adversity. Think about that.
Yeah. That 400 meters, ladies and gentlemen, Donna was talking about there, that is about 1,000, that's over 1,300 feet. I
I
mean,
used to
that's,
run those.
oh, yeah. She couldn't pronounce them, but she used to run them, you
Right?
know.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. I tell you, yeah.
Not enough coffee today, folks.
There you go. You know, Donna, this one here is something that really is near and dear to our hearts, to everybody out there. And today is the National World Breast Cancer Day
Absolutely.
and Research Day. And we both know and love Tamara Hunter, good
Mm,
friend of ours here at the station. In fact,
salt of the earth.
yeah, she was instrumental in our show becoming, going from Zoom and Facebook Live back during the pandemic, coming to E360 TV.
Yes, she
But
was.
when she gets on stage, because Tamara is a cancer survivor, and she's going to talk about that and her nonprofit bosom, what's it called? Chemo Buddies,
Chemo
dot,
buddies for life.
yeah, chemobuddiesforlife.org. And she looks at the audience, ladies and gentlemen, and she says, who in here has ever heard these three words? You have cancer. Please stand. And a lot of people stand.
Hmm.
And then she says, who of you here in the audience know of someone that's heard those three words? You have cancer.
Right?
And I think everybody else in the audience, it's normally 100%
Everybody
of the
stands
people
up.
stand. So the history of the World Breast Cancer Research Day is very, very important. And these days are set aside to put emphasis on an item like this, breast cancer, which is very, takes a lot of lives and that sort of thing. But it was the Dr. Susan Love Foundation. That foundation was the catalyst officially penning this day back in May of 2021, that World Breast Cancer Research Day. Not only to bring attention to the disease, but also the amount of work and effort that has been done into understanding and treating disease that affects so many people on the planet. And the Dr. Susan Love Foundation is hopeful that World Breast Cancer Research will be a pivotal day in history that will allow us to achieve a breast cancer-free world. And we got to salute them on that.
Absolutely. And the other thing that it's important to understand with breast cancer is it isn't just always, it may start in the breast, but if it
Right.
has, depending on the type of cancer
Mhm.
and where it goes, and if it metastasizes, it can obviously go into the lymph nodes, but it also can lead to brain cancer.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So that's kind of a
And
scary thing.
I read many years ago, and I'm not a subject matter expert on this. This is just, I read something, and you know, you read something that makes an impression on you, and you go like, I don't know, but you know what? I'm not going to test it, you know. But I read that one of the reasons why this was an individual writing their article, this is not my article, or I'm not endorsing that article. I'm just saying, I read where if you stand in front of a microwave while it's going, the radiation leakage from the microwave is one of the reasons why a lot of ladies suffer from breast cancer. And I don't know if that's true or not. I do know microwaves do have some leakage, because when they first came out, there used to be signs warning.
I think that they've come a long way since then.
Yeah,
But back
they've
in
had
the
to.
beginning,
Yeah.
but back in the beginning, I
Mhm.
think there was a lot of that, Jim.
Yeah. And there were signs that you would see for people who had pacemakers, warning, we have microwaves here.
Pregnant women too.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
But you might want to research that. But whether you believe it or not, or if you think it's a hoax or whatever, maybe it's not true. But I'm not going to stand in front of that microwave and I'm not going to take the chance. It's just it's just not worth the risk to me. That's just what I'm saying. But
Right.
it's a wonderful time for us to be able to come together and bring to your attention the Dr. Love Foundation there, and the wonderful work that they do, Dr. Susan Love, and World Cancer Research Day. And if you can, check it out. And most importantly, if you can, be able to donate to that worthy cause,
Hmm.
because it's so important. Because it's, cancer is not a nice word to anybody. It really isn't. And Donna, we want to talk about some famous people.
Yes, we do. We do. You go
Mhm.
ahead and lead off. This is going to be amazing.
Okay. One of the people that I want to go back, I want to roll back in time a little bit. A lady by the name of Helen Keller. She was diagnosed. She lived from 1880 to 1968. She was blind and she was also deaf. But she is one of the most inspiring stories of an individual who managed to overcome, despite all the odds that Helen Keller experienced. She overcame the adversity of being deaf and blind to become one of the leading humanitarians of the 20th century. She was born physically normal. She lost her sight and hearing at the age of 19 months. So imagine, she'd never, 19 months. I mean, you probably never remember even having anything, I don't
No.
think. And, it just left her, especially at that time, it left her to live in a world, it forced her to live in a world, grow up in a world that just seemed totally isolated. However, through the instruction of a remarkable teacher named Anne Sullivan, as a little girl, Helen Keller learned to understand and communicate with the world around her. Now, let's stop there for a moment. That is a tremendous lesson right there. Notice that back in those days, they were not up to speed on treating people with that had disabilities, or especially like Helen Keller's case, her being blind and deaf.
Right.
But there was a remarkable teacher, it describes her, Anne Sullivan. She took this little girl under her wing and she helped her develop her senses and her powers within to be able to communicate to this blind and deaf world. And, Donna, that is something that people everywhere could be like Anne Sullivan. Just have a loving heart, a caring heart, and whatever you can do, no matter how small it is,
Right.
to be a blessing to someone else. That in itself is an inspiration, a big
Absolutely.
time, especially to me. I like stories like that. I really do.
I do too. I do too. So this is it's kind of interesting in this site that we have, folks. So there are so many Hollywood A-list actors who are dyslexic.
Hmm.
Very, very successful. So
Hmm.
one of them is Orlando Bloom. And of
Hmm.
course, he's best known for his roles, Will Turner in Pirates of the Caribbean, co-starring with Johnny Depp. But he was diagnosed with dyslexia at age 7. And despite his mother's efforts into getting him to read more, Bloom's struggles left him looking for a creative outlet. So he turned to the stage. He eventually mastered reading out loud in drama school and even turned his dyslexia into an advantage. The gift, this is quote unquote, folks, the gift of dyslexia was that I learned everything forward and backward, inside
Hmm.
and out. So I was fully prepared, he said. I had to learn everything so that I wouldn't have stage fright or the lines wouldn't fall out of my mind.
Hmm.
So, here's the thing I know. So, one of my children is dyslexic, and
Hmm.
it was quite the battle to get the school to recognize that. But I finally got there.
Hmm.
But what I have found in my own journey with my own child with dyslexia is, okay, let's just say my brain goes from here to here and over here. My child's brain skips this part and just goes straight to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though some things are harder to, to understand, the reading, etc., letters being backwards, but the ability, it's like it's opened up new pathways into the brain, where it takes me maybe 2 days to get to the same conclusion, if you will. They skip right to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, so, and here's the other thing. Most people who are dyslexic have a way above average IQ, Jim.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Way, way above average.
Yeah. They certainly
Absolutely
do.
Brilliant.
They certainly do. And before the show, I was telling Donna about this guy. I was trying to find him. While she was talking. I got busy and I found him. I always enjoyed his shows. The guy, his name is Stephen Cannell, Cannell, Stephen J. Cannell. He was a legendary TV producer of shows such as The Rockford Files, The A-Team, 21 Jump Street, and who later in life, he found success as the author of many best-selling thrillers. He died at the age of 69, but he got started writing scripts on TV series like It Takes a Thief back in the 60s, and Ironside and Adam 12. And I remember reading somewhere that he was dismissed from one writing job because they didn't think he could do it. They didn't understand him.
Right.
As Donna was talking about, he was over here and they were down there somewhere. Right. And that can happen a lot of times. There's a disconnect, a non-appreciation for someone like that. And in doing so, he went out on his own. He created his own production company. But the thing that I really liked he was just very creative. He had that special vision. And people who suffer from dyslexia, yes, they may see things different than we do, but they're also blessed. And, I keep thinking back. I don't remember the child's name. The child that was born blind, and he had other problems, physical problems. And the so-called doctors and experts thought he was just going to be a human vegetable. And his mother started with a tuning fork, and he loved to put the tuning fork in his mouth and feel the vibration. And then he learned to play the piano. This was over in England. No. He wasn't famous like that. Oh. But he was a kid that grew up, I think it was in England, and he became the piano and him just became one. And then one day he shocked his parents because they heard the piano going, which was normal, but then they heard this beautiful voice and they go, who's singing? Or what record's playing? Or who is that? And the little kid was in there playing that piano beautifully, like a concert pianist, and lifting up his voice and singing like a male canary. Wow. Yeah. And here the so-called, your son's going to be probably a vegetable, so prepare for that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And your doctor may be a moron too, so prepare for that one.
Well, the interesting thing is that I, at least in my own journey, I've seen and read where a lot of people who are dyslexic have other things that maybe
other gifts.
Other gifts. That's a great way to put it. So my child has an idyllic memory. And I'm like, how in the Sam, do you remember that? Oh, I read it about 15 years ago. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So, that is a huge blessing that often goes with, a dyslexic mind.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of people having a photographic type of memory?
Well, that's idyllic is a partial photographic.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember my dad's family, they had what was called a photographic memory.
I wish I did.
Oh, me and you both asked Dad. My dad had a warped sense of humor. I said, Dad, how come some people in your family have a photographic memory? We don't. He said, well, your mother's family never had much film.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness.
But I mean, I figured that was, it's funny to share, fun note.
Absolutely.
But it's really important to look at these people and realize that what they have comes with everything in life. Where there's a yin, there's a yang.
Absolutely.
And we sometimes want to label things as a learning disability, as this or as that or whatever. But every yin has a yang.
Right.
It really does. The average person most of the time doesn't see it. So the best advice that I give myself is that as what my mother used to tell me, if you can't say something nice about someone, don't say anything at all. I heard that a lot growing up.
Me too. Me too.
And that's something that kids should hear today.
Right.
They really should.
Absolutely.
We are anemic in that arena of respect.
We are.
We're almost borderline ready for life support on that one, if you know the truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That, being different isn't a bad thing. But so often, we see it as a bad thing. And honestly, that's a lot of bullying comes from that. And that is just absolutely a tragedy because, gosh darn it, we're all different. So why are we bullying? Like, I was always adamant about that with my children. And I thank the good Lord that they were never a bully. They were never a bully. And they always stood for those who were being bullied. And that was very important for me, to stand for those who can't stand for themselves.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That was a big one with me. So, I want to go on to this next person.
Okay.
So we've all heard him, right? He's absolutely famous. It's Michael Phelps.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So to say swimmer extraordinaire would be kind of an understatement, right? Growing up, Michael Phelps, a champion swimmer, was continuously criticized by teachers for his inability to sit still and was formally diagnosed with ADHD when he was in 5th grade. After being on Ritalin for over 2 years, Phelps chose to stop using the drug and instead use swimming to help him find focus. His choice clearly paid off as he ended his Olympic career as the most highly decorated Olympian of all time, boasting 22 medals.
Wow.
18 of them being gold.
Mercy.
So, one of my other children is ADHD, and it is a struggle. It is a struggle for that focus. So I can honestly empathize with anybody out there who's got a child or an adult with ADHD. It is a hard darn thing to go through. There's just, you talk about squirrel, right? They go from one thing to the other, and they can't get their brain to come together and focus. And it's an imbalance, a chemical imbalance.
Right.
So very, very difficult.
It really is. And, if in school, if I would have been evaluated today, as opposed to back in the 50s and 60s, I would have probably been diagnosed with ADHD. But then what I realized when I say I realized, I read some things, and I remember attending a class one time, and this guy was a brilliant speaker, and I wish it was recorded, but it wasn't. And he was talking about in school, a lot of curriculum that they create and develop is boring to kids.
It is.
And he says they back off and they say, well, the reason why your child can't learn, they have ADHD or whatever. And he says, really, they were boring them to death. And I don't want this to sound egotistical or anything, but I was kind of like that in school.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went down, I took the ASVAB test in the Army in 1968. I got drafted. I decided to get discharged and drafted, join the regular Army and all that, so I can get a choice of school and not just leave it up to the Army to put me wherever. And I'm sitting there with this guy, this sergeant, and he says, okay, what do you want to do? I don't know. I'm still trying to learn how to spell Army. Give me a break. And then he made a comment to me. He says, well, you tested very high on the ASVAB test. You can take anything you want from accounting all the way down to welding. So tell me what you want to do. Well, I don't know. But it kind of shocked me. I thought, I tested kind of high. Would you call my mother and tell her? Because if I call her and tell her, she's not going to believe me.
She's not going to believe me. Well, and that's true with so many learning disabilities.
Yes.
So I know with my child, they had who is dyslexic, had a lot of trouble being focused, got into trouble, nothing huge, but just got into trouble.
Yeah.
And that was in junior high. Went into high school and boom, it was a whole different story, because now there was something at a level that they could grasp. And they weren't bored to death.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you said there about the Phelps approach, Michael Phelps, how he said, I'm going to get off these drugs. I'm going to dive into something that can help me create what it is that, I need to do to be able to focus. And too many times, I'm not knocking anything. I'm not saying anything about the medical community or the doctors or anything, but so many times we're lazy. We want to rely on, give me a pill. I mean, think about the people who don't want to change their eating habits, but they want the doctor to give them a pill to help them lose weight.
Right.
I belonged to a group there for a while on Facebook, people that had the cabbage procedure, the open heart surgery and all. And this one guy, I'm not making this up. I wish I was making this up. He says, anybody else had any problems? Because he's not talking, but I'm reading his comment. But this is the way I visualize him. Anybody else have this problem? He says, ever since my operation, I started gaining weight, and I weigh 55 more pounds now than I did 6 months ago when I had the operation. I'm going like, what are you eating? I mean, any real good, Donna's got a little bit of communication problem there, and she'll be right back. But any time a good nutritionist will tell you when you think you're hungry, really what you are, your body is thirsty. So drink a glass of water. And I want to just touch on that while Donna's working on her internet there to get back up. But in the morning, when you get up in the morning, and this is a little bit off topic, and I apologize for that, but in the morning when you get up and after you go to the restroom and drain your bladder, that's when you weigh yourself. Because when I was in rehab for my heart and all, that's what the folks there told me. It says, and right afterwards, you need to drink a glass of water because you've been fasting all night. And that's why they call breakfast break fast, because you're going to break the fast when you start eating again. And I picked up my water intake, and folks, water is, obviously we know it's good for you. We definitely need it and all that. But the point being is that if you drink water, you're going to consume less food. I remember reading somewhere where a dietitian recommended before you eat any meal, drink a glass of water, because people confuse hunger with food rather than their body needs water. And so I just wanted to throw that out there while we were waiting for Donna. But I also want to mention this young man. Oh my goodness gracious. This is a great inspirational story. Chris Burke was born in 1956. he was diagnosed with Down syndrome. And I'm just going to share this with you because it's very well written. And I just want to share Chris's story with you. Chris Burke is an American actor who is best known for his character playing Charles Corky Thatcher on the television series Life Goes On.
That was an amazing show.
Yeah. When Chris, oh, you're back. Okay. Hey, Donna. But when Chris was born, his parents were told to institutionalize him. But instead, they said no. They decided to raise him at home and nurture his needs and talents. He was encouraged by his very supportive family to follow his dreams of being on TV, and Chris became the first person, listen to this, he became the first person with Down syndrome to star in a weekly television series. Mm-hmm. He has since appeared on numerous TV shows, movies, and currently serves as the National Down Syndrome Society ambassador. And Chris has the faith in his own ability and the courage to face any prejudice that comes his way, because he pushed all that aside to pursue his dream to become an actor. Oh my goodness. That is a killer story right there, isn't
it? That is. Absolutely is. And, you know, that was out in the late 70s, early 80s, if I recall right, that show.
Let's see here. Let's see. Life Goes On. Let's see here. Let me see if I can pull it up here right quick. I'm a speed typist with one finger. Yeah, let's see. It was on the American ABC, American Broadcast Company, from September the 12th, 1989 to May the 23rd, 1993.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 80s, 90s.
And then it had reruns on the Family Channel from 92 to 95, and FX from 95 to 98, and PAX, which is now Ion Television, from 98 to 99. But Life Goes On. And it's just amazing because here's a young man. The people who starred on it were, of course, Bill, is that Smithrovich, Chris Burke, Kelly Martin, Patty Lupon, Tracy Needham, and Michelle Matheson. Oh my goodness.
Show.
Yeah, 4 seasons, 83 episodes. But that is a tremendous story, because that just goes to show you, because right now, ladies and gentlemen, television is a lot more friendlier and accepting people than it was years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, years ago, if you were not young, good looking, and, looked like you could be a poster boy or poster girl somewhere, you were not going to get on TV.
No.
And when Aaron Hymas, the president of E360 TV, saw what we were doing there on their Zoom TV thing we had, we wasn't a TV, but we were on Zoom and Facebook Live. Even as old as ugly as I was, he said, "You'll work. You're okay, We may have to black out your face there a little bit, but that's okay, No, but what I'm saying is that don't let anything hold you or your child back, or anyone that you know, regardless of what, like this young man that had Down syndrome. That was back in the late 80s, 89 when that show kicked off.
Don't be held prisoner or be held hostage.
Oh, yeah. Because if that young man could do it with Down syndrome, anybody can do it.
Absolutely.
Anybody can do it. I mean, it's just, the other limitation is in the canyons of your mind.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's where you cripple yourself.
Right. So here's another interesting story about somebody we all know well.
All right.
So Daniel Radcliffe, right? Best known for Harry Potter series, which, of course, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. So, but he has dyspraxia. So I had never heard of that before. So he has lived with a mild case of dyspraxia for his entire life. Dyspraxia is a common neurological disorder that affects motor skill development, meaning that at 25 years old and the star of one of the largest franchises of movie history, Radcliffe still has trouble tying his shoelaces. In an interview regarding his Broadway debut, he once jokingly stated, "I sometimes think, why, oh why, has Velcro not taken off?" So, he has lived with, and I'm sure that's just one example. I'm sure with, with motor function skills, there's other things that he probably has some difficulty doing. So, this is very interesting because that affects your everyday getting ready, your everyday life. And yet he did not let the minor part of that in his life get in the way of his passion and get in the way. And he's been in several other movies other than obviously the Harry Potter series, and has really grown as a tremendous actor.
Yeah.
So, hats off to him. I mean, there's just so many out there who can do so much, and they don't let the things that they're born with or by accident get in the way and stop them from loving life, loving themselves, giving themselves grace when grace is needed, and moving on.
And having the courage to say, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to enjoy life.
Absolutely.
This may be a suitcase I got to carry along the pathway of life, but guess what? That suitcase is coming, but it's not going to be in front of me. It's going to be, on the side here somewhere, maybe even drag it behind me,
Well, the thing about having to carry a suitcase with you, and I know a little about that, but the thing about having to carry a suitcase with you is how much crap you want to put in it to make it heavy. Yeah. Do you want to keep burdening it and packing more in there? Or do you just want to pack the very basics and say, this is what I have. This is what, this is my journey in my life. Yeah. So I'm going to carry this dang suitcase, but it's only going to weigh about 2 pounds.
Yeah. I'm just going to choose what's going to go in there.
Absolutely.
Exactly right. Yeah. And there is a whole list of people who have suffered from dyslexia. Steven Spielberg. I mean, he's a huge,
Brilliant.
I'd like to get a bad case of dyslexia like he's got, right? I tell you, I should have, instead of being born so good looking, I should have had more brains at least, But, he's a gentleman that suffers from dyslexia, but it certainly didn't, hinder his talent, his ability. I mean, Indiana Jones, E.T., what were some of the other things he did?
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, yeah. The list goes on and on. And there's so many singers and entertainers and actors. Justin Timberlake is another one that suffers from ADD and OCD. And Christopher Knight, I always liked him. He was Peter on the Brady Bunch. And he was always he was a cool kid, I always thought.
Well, the thing about him is it went undiagnosed until 1997. And since his diagnosis at age 39, he sought treatment for his condition and has served as a spokesman for the National Consumer League's ADHD campaign. So I can tell you, having gone through 2 children with some issues, the dyslexia and ADHD, if it goes undiagnosed, especially when our children are young, Jim, and in school, they can get lost.
Yes.
Right. And when I say I had to fight to find out exactly what was going on with my child who has dyslexia, and I do mean I had to fight because that principal was a nasty woman, and she did not like her time being taken up by some mom wanting to know what the hell is wrong with her kid. She had better things to do. So, that went over like a lead balloon in church, I'll tell you right now. But the counselor had told me when I went into the second round of, the first time they said to me, well, your child has a learning disability. And I knew from dealing with that woman who was just so dadgum mean that she was going to be ugly like that. And I had prepared a letter, because you had to have a letter in formal letter given to them. You couldn't just do it verbally. I had another letter ready to go as soon as that was said, and said, great, now find out what the disability is, what the learning disability is, so we can go forth from here. And so, it took about another 6-7 months for that to go through. But when that was finally confirmed, the counselor told me, she looked at me and she said, I want to commend you on being so forthright and being such a, basically a pit bull about it. Because had you not found out the exact problem for your child to be able to address it, I guarantee you your child would have gotten lost in the system and would have been one of those children who just kind of went away and probably dropped out of school.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the story of Thomas Edison, because at one time, early on, the teacher felt that he was too stupid to learn anything.
Yes.
And his mother knew differently, and she tutored him herself. And of course, we know Thomas Edison, my goodness gracious. I mean, what all did this guy invent? I mean, electrical power generation, mass communication, sound recording, motion pictures, to name a few.
Right.
But what's really interesting is that, and I was just reading something here, at the age of 12, he started developing hearing loss. And, it just got worse. And because of the deafness, they believe that the cause of the deafness came from when he had scarlet fever when he was a child. And but Edison would continue to listen to music on a player or a piano by clamping his teeth onto the wood. Here, another case of someone that can't hear, but they can feel the vibration.
Right.
But this is unique. Thomas Edison actually believed his hearing loss would allow him to avoid outside distractions so he could more easily concentrate on his work. That is a tremendous outlook right there. That's turning a disadvantage into an advantage. And that's what
the ability and disability.
That's right. That's what all these folks have done.
Absolutely.
They've been able to turn a disadvantage into an advantage. And, like I talked about the young man that played Peter on the
Brady Bunch.
Yeah, the Brady Bunch. Thank you. He had the courage to step out. I mean, Christopher Knight has got the courage to step out and say, hey, this is who I am.
Right.
But I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to own it. That is key. When you own whatever shortcoming is, that's true in all walks of life. When you make a mistake, when you're misinformed, you say the wrong thing, whatever, own it. Have the courage to own it, because when you own it, it will never own you.
Absolutely. I am, as you know, Jim, I'm a huge believer in that. That I do not feel that anything that we have should be all-consuming, because it's a part of who we are. It's what we have, but that doesn't define you, and that makes you that only part of that person, right?
That's right. That's right.
So it's a small part, but like in my own issue with my arthritis and my MS, it taught me a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
Even my brain surgeries taught me a valuable lesson in understanding that I need to stop and smell the roses a little more.
Amen.
Slow my roll, right? Get a little more rest. Take care of me. Take care of me first. That was huge, because let me tell you, for 40 some years, I put when I was married to my first husband and my children, I put everybody ahead of me, everybody and everything.
Yes.
And so by the time that I finally had to stop because I was forced medically to stop and take care of myself, I was beyond exhausted. I was so exhausted, it took me into a depression.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see that. Yeah, absolutely. And that makes me not want to say what I was going to say. I was just going to try to give her a cheap sales job there. I was going to say, I know how much you love to cook, and when's the next time you've been making some good brownies? Because this lady, when she cooks, I mean, even the neighborhood dogs start drooling like a hound dog at a picnic.
Yeah, my husband doesn't complain much.
Yeah. Edgy's not only a nice guy, he's a lucky guy in all aspects there. And you guys make a great couple. You really do. You complement each other. You
Thank
really
you.
do.
We do. We're very, very happy.
Oh yeah, and I'm so glad for that. Well, our time is going, ain't it?
It is. We are already over this hour, and I can't believe how quick it's gone, Jim.
You're absolutely correct. And ladies and gentlemen, we're hoping that you're really enjoying this series. And tomorrow I'm going to do a special with Austin Haynes and Mandy Robinson will be with us. We're going to be talking a little bit about this health turnaround book on Friday. And these are people in this book. They invited me to put my chapter in here about my heart, lessons from the heart. And they came up with that title. I didn't. I just told them, well, this is what I went through, and this is, just shared some information with them. But all of these people, there's 12 different authors in there, and I was blessed and honored to be one. But the thing of it is, in that story, this really is a nice cap to our week. These are everyday people who overcame tragedy in their life, problems with illnesses, emotional problems, abuse, and their stories in there. When I read some of the stories, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Right.
Like a good friend of mine, Joe T-Well, he was an athletic trainer for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he was all gung-ho and running high, because he put his heart into it. He was running high energy and all that. And he got caught up in the performance drugs. And it takes a lot of courage for someone like that to tell their story.
Right.
And that's the kind of power-packed book it is. So we're looking forward to doing that tomorrow. And it's just an honor for me to be invited in there. And they told me that next time they want to do another series on that Flashpoint series, they call it, they want Donna's story in there. So
what an honor that will be.
Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to be asked to be put into a book. And this book is on Amazon, the Flashpoint series, Your Health Turnaround Story. It's on Amazon. So, and to be invited like it truly is an honor, and it touches our hearts. And that's what happens when you come from the heart and your focus is on, let me help others. So they don't need to be scared. Like in my case, there's no reason to be scared about having open heart surgery. It's not a scary thing. It's not a painful thing either. But anyway, our time is gone, and we better get out of here. And thank you so much for tuning in. And please remember, in all things, love yourself first. And forgive those that do not serve you. Have a wonderful day or evening. And Donna, thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next time.
Bye, folks.